Hey, this is Bill from Calderwood Percussion with another weekly shop update. There's a couple things I'd like to talk about today. The first is this drum. This is a WFL drum from World War II that was manufactured for the U.S. Army. Just finished doing a restoration on this. This drum is really interesting for a number of reasons. So during World War II, there was a law passed that no item manufactured in this country could have more than, I think, 10%. 10% of the total weight of that item could be made of metal, but no more than 10%, right? So, so for musical instrument companies, that posed obviously a bunch of problems. So brass instrument manufacturers like the Kahn factory in Elkhart and White, I think, or which is King, they just had to stop manufacturing instruments altogether, and they switched all their tooling over to making shell casings for like artillery shells during the war. But for the drum manufacturers, they mostly kind of went a different direction and just said, oh, we're just going to use all wood parts, you know. So for instance, the Rolling Bomber series, that was Slingerland, I think, and then Ludwig Lee had the Victory series. But anyway, so the drums with wooden lugs, wooden hoops, all wood stuff was the thing. So during World War II, at some point, I don't remember what year, WFL got commissioned by the U.S. Army to make like 4,000 or 5,000 marching snares, and this is one of those drums. You know, as we were working on this, there's a lot of evidence inside this drum that it was made in like a big hurry. Like there's a lot of corners cut inside this thing, which makes sense, right? Because I don't know, but I don't think that WFL was really ever that big of a company, right? So for them to have to make between 4,000 and 5,000 of these marching snares in what was probably pretty short order was probably a stretch. So it stands to reason that, you know, they would have had to kind of skip on some of the fine finishing steps. But that said, this thing sounds awesome. It's like exactly what you want a military field drum to sound like, you know. And again, because it was made during World War II, even though this was a Department of Defense contract, it still had to follow that rule where no more than 10% of the total weight could be made out of metal. So they went with rope tension. So on this drum, the only metal is, you know, there's the D-ring carry. There's a very small stamped butt plate for the snares. And the snare strainer, only the screw and the part that actually holds the snares are made out of metal. The mount is a piece of maple that they carved. And then on the original ears, there was a metal clip at the top. Only like 2.5 of these original ears were surviving, so we replaced it with our own kind of generic shape. We considered fabricating a set of replicas of these, but just for the sake of cost, the client decided that let's just, you know, stick with this, which works great. And yeah, it's a really cool drum. Like I said, despite showing evidence of having been made very hastily, it's just an awesome drum that sounds great. And when we were putting it back together, I was going to tuck a calfskin head for it, and then I remembered that I had this laying around. This head says on it, Golden Anniversary, Leedy Superior Hard White, 1895 to 1945, 50 years. This head was made in 1945, presumably that's when it was put on this flesh hoop. It's clearly got a bunch of use on it, and then it sat around for who knows how long before it came to me. And so I just kind of had it laying around, and as I was getting ready to put this drum back together, I remembered I had it. I was like, well, if I'm going to put this head on anything, I'm going to put it on this drum. I wasn't really sure what it was going to sound like after all these years, and I have to say it sounds absolutely fantastic. Calfskin is pretty amazing. So anyway, that's been just a really cool project, a really cool piece of you know, U.S. history and drum making history. So yeah, it's really cool. The other thing I want to talk about, we've been thinking about other ways that we can kind of be involved and helpful in the percussion community, and we had this idea of making another YouTube channel that would kind of like parallel to our regular YouTube channel, where you could upload videos of you performing like an etude or an excerpt or something for feedback. And at this point, you know, we've done work for so many like serious professional dudes, like you know, like big symphony players and university professors, and like, you know, my buddies and the Hellcats and the Old Guard and Broadway guys, like a lot of pretty heavy hitters, you know. And so there's a lot of people that we've kind of built these relationships with that maybe we could tap to help us out with this. So we're kind of thinking, I haven't really decided how this is going to work yet, but kind of the idea that I'm mostly kicking around right now is, what if we did either like every 2 weeks or maybe once a month, we would select an etude or an excerpt, you know, maybe a rudimental snare drum solo, maybe a timpani excerpt, maybe like a Goldenberg etude or something. I don't know, but select an etude or an excerpt, and then you work it up, film yourself performing it, upload it to this secondary YouTube channel thing, and then we'd have somebody watch all the videos and give a little bit of feedback. And we're kind of thinking about doing it so that, you know, we pick the excerpt or etude and everybody learns the same thing, and then that way, you know, you could check out the feedback on everybody else's videos, and then, you know, kind of everybody can learn from that, like masterclass style. We also had the idea of just kind of like, hey, whatever you're working on right now, you know, we would just have times where you could upload that for feedback, and so that's another idea. So, and this would be free, like you wouldn't have to pay for this, you know. We would get whoever the kind of clinician is, you know, and that person would just be there for this session to like watch all these videos that get uploaded, offer whatever feedback, and then but ideally, you know, you can watch other people's videos and check out their feedback, and because we can all learn from that, right? You know. So I'd be really interested to hear in the comments what you think about that. Is that something you would participate in? Do you have any thoughts about ways that you think would be a cool way to do it? Or any ideas that we haven't thought of? You know, I'd be really interested to hear what people think about that, and any thoughts or ideas you have about it, because it's something I think would be really cool to do. So anyway, please let me know what you think about that, and as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.